What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Engage 8 podcast. I'm your host, Zach. My two co-hosts, Josh and Mike, they're feeling under the weather and kind of crammed with final stuff. We're all juniors in college. We have a lot of stuff going on with finals and everything. So this is going to be a much shorter episode. Probably just going to go over some headlines from the last couple days, go over Bears-Vikings on Monday Night Football and that shit show. And then I'm going to do my own little spiel about the Bears. I've been tweeting about some stuff last few days, but there are not enough characters in the world for the thoughts that I have about this team. So first off, with some headliners, Frank Reich was fired on Monday, and special teams coordinator Chris Tabor is going to take the interim head coaching duties, which ironically he overtook Matt Nagy for a game, I believe in 2021. When he was out with COVID or something. So that's kind of ironic. Deshaun Jackson today, it might have been today, it might have been yesterday, he announced his retirement. I believe he's going to sign a 1-year deal with the Eagles and retire an Eagle. So congrats to him. And we have, what was the other one? Oh, Aaron Rodgers, according to Robert Saleh, they are opening the 21-day practice window for him to return back to the Jets. So that's definitely something to keep track of. I'm very, very intrigued to see how they approach that with his age, and obviously they're seeding in the playoffs if they even have a chance to make it. But that would be a historically fast recovery from someone who's 39 years old and ruptured his Achilles, as of now, 79 days ago. So moving on to the Bears and Vikings recap. Bears beat the Vikings 12-10 in a very ugly Monday Night Football game. Josh Dobbs had 1 touchdown to TJ Hawkinson and 4 interceptions. In my opinion, I think really only 2 were his fault. One of them was a drop by Jordan Addison, and the other one was he just didn't need to force it. And it was basically already the end of the game anyways. Kind of, sort of. But regardless, TJ Hawkinson, relatively quiet day compared to the rest of his time without his running mate Justin Jefferson, only 5 catches for 50 yards. Madison actually found somewhat of a solid day on the ground with only 10 carries, but 52 yards, so that was pretty good. And on the Bears side of things, I got a lot to say about this one. Justin Fields was their leading rusher, 12 carries for 59 yards, and he also threw for 217, no touchdowns, no picks, but he did have those 2 really, really, really bad fumbles. DJ Moore eclipsed the 1,000 yard mark receiving. He had 11 catches for 114 yards on Monday, so that was really awesome. Montez Sweat has been the pickup of a lifetime for the Bears ever since the trade deadline. He got 1.5 sacks on Monday and was constantly in Josh Dobbs' face, just creating pressure, and it was phenomenal. That other half sack was to Jaquan Brisker, who also recorded an interception. Another shout out to Jalen Johnson. He's been a phenomenal corner this year. He's been arguably top 5 of the entire league, and I think the Bears should pay him. He had another dropped pick 6 this week. So that's got to get figured out. If I'm him, I'm spending the rest of the season on the jugs machine. And that'll probably solve a few issues. Shout out to TJ Edwards as well, having silently a very, very, very phenomenal season. He's been, I think first in the league in total tackles for at least 4 or 5 weeks now. He's leading inside linebackers in interceptions, I believe, I don't know about leading, but he had another interception on Monday. I think he's up to 2 or 3 on the season, depending on if something was like a tipped pass or a fumble. I don't have the exact stats in front of me. But this was the Bears' second straight game with 4+ takeaways. They had 8 in the last 2 games, in both against Detroit and Minnesota. And they've got a relatively tough schedule in their next 2 games, although both of these teams are going into their bye weeks. The Bears are looking very, very interesting, to say the least. This is where I'm going to start getting into my very opinionated pieces about the Bears. They're 4-8 right now, and they're 4-4 in their last 4, or in their last 8. I can't do math. They are playing extremely well on the defensive side of the ball. Their offense has been up and down, but part of that's because they've had a backup quarterback in, and Fields is still getting his feet under him. But they're 4-4 in the last 8. They're 2 horrendous coaching blunders away from being 6-6 and fighting for a wild card spot. I'm going to make a wild claim here and say that the Bears, they're not a bad football team. They're a very poor coached team. I think the roster is actually pretty solid. They've got a lot of young pieces and veteran pieces that are performing very well. Veteran pieces like TJ Edwards having an all-pro season. Montez Sweat playing phenomenal, having a career year. I think he's tied his career high in sacks with 9, and he's still got 5 games left to go. Jalen Johnson, this is his 4th year in the league. He's got 3 interceptions, probably could have at least 5, and even maybe 3 total pick sixes. But we don't live in a world of what-ifs. But defensively, they've really blossomed under the conditions that they're in now. I'm a firm believer that a good pass rush can make up for a bad secondary more than a good secondary can make up for a bad pass rush. And Montez Sweat has been absolutely incredible in just allowing other guys to get one-on-ones, especially Gervon Dexter. He's really been blossoming against some of the solid guards in the league. He was in the backfield quite a lot, at least generating a lot of pressure against the Vikings. But offensively, man, Justin Fields, I could go on for hours about him. But for the most part, he played a rough game. He started out like 12 for 12. A majority of everything was near the sticks, but he had a couple really nice throws, one of which was to, I believe, Roschon Johnson rolling to his left. And then another one when the Vikings sent, I believe, 7 on 4th and 10. He ended up getting rid of it and getting it to Cole Kmet for 20-plus yards. So that was insanely impressive. But then in the 4th quarter, he did end up having those 2 fumbles and almost cost them the game. But when it mattered most, he went down, had 3 crucial plays. I believe 2 of which were rushes, scrambling, just getting out of pressure. And then the last one was that 36-yard pass to DJ Moore on the backside dig that set up the field goal. So if I had to give a definitive statement right now, I think I'm in the same boat as last week. If I had to choose, I would have Justin Fields as my starting quarterback in 2024. And you can argue that, like, oh, he was terrible the entire game. But I can go back and say, well, he won the game. That's what we want, right? The argument for last week against Detroit was, oh, he played great all game, but he lost. So we got to pick one side here. We can't just be moving the goalposts. Sure, Bears fans do that all the time. I might have done it a couple times myself, but I'm not perfect. But right now, I think I'm having Fields as my quarterback in 2024. Looking ahead at their schedule, I hinted at it earlier, they've got Detroit in Chicago coming out of the bye, and then they go to Cleveland, and then they have, I believe, Atlanta in Atlanta, and then Arizona and Chicago, and then final game of the year is Green Bay in Green Bay. So obviously the 2 toughest games are going to be Detroit and Cleveland. Hopefully the Bears can come out and play really well because they've had an extra week to prepare for Detroit. It's a revenge game, a game that they should have won but choked. Mainly coaching, because you just can't go so conservative and let the Lions get so many yards, so many points in under 3 minutes. It's just absurd. And then that Cleveland game. But that game looks a lot more winnable right now because they have, we don't even know who they're going to have at quarterback. They might have PJ Walker, which would be an ironic PJ Walker revenge game because he was waived and released by Chicago earlier this year. If DTR isn't available to go, because that was a nasty hit that he took last week in that game. But yeah, those are 2, depending on how they look in those 2 games, dare I say the Bears can run the table and maybe make the playoffs at 9-8. It all depends on the offense, in my opinion. I think the defense is going to be able to keep Cleveland in check because they are on their 3rd quarterback. Amari Cooper has been non-existent with backup quarterbacks, and I hate that for him. He's a great receiver. It's just sometimes your backup quarterbacks don't have that connection with those superstar receivers. Like Tyson Bagent with the Bears. He wasn't hitting DJ Moore as often as Justin Fields is right now. But Jerome Ford's been really solid as well, so if the Bears can stop the run and force DTR or PJ Walker to throw the ball, I think things can get really interesting. But it all depends on the offense. If Getsy can get his head out of his ass and not call like 20-plus screens in a game, I think it'll turn into a very interesting first 2 games coming out of the bye. So if the Bears can somehow win those 2 games, I might be a lot more optimistic. I'm like 99, I tweeted this out earlier today. I'm 99% sure that the Bears are going to end up only winning one, maybe two games. And I think those games would be probably within the final 3 game stretch against Atlanta, depending on which Desmond Ridder we see. Arizona, depending on just how Kyler's playing, because he's definitely improving week by week. And then Green Bay, because if we see the good Jordan Love, he'll probably dice us up like it was week 1. But if we see the O-line, the Green Bay O-line kind of falter as they have in the last month, they have been getting better, but they've been inconsistent as a whole this year. Depending on what Green Bay O-line we see, Montez Sweat and this Bears defense could cause fits for Jordan Love as they've just gotten better and better throughout the season. But that's still really far in advance. If I had to guess today, we're probably finishing the year 6-11, if I had to guess. But going into the bye on a thrilling win to say it's got to be great for morale. I can say that. But outside of that, I don't have much else about that game. Oh, props to Brian Flores. He's got those guys humming on defense. But yeah, that was my little spiel for this week. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. We have Spotify and TikTok links down in the description if you prefer an audio format or you just want to see some shorter clips just from episodes. We got a couple funny ones up there on the TikTok, so that link will be down in the description. Hope you all enjoyed, and see you guys next time.